What's up, everybody? All right, today we're doing a dropshipping talk. And so, what's up?
How are you?
I'm doing great, man. I got my tea, trying to stay hydrated. That's my friend Hasib. He's my
Hello.
roommate.
Hey, Azim. So, I have seen some videos. I know a little bit about you. Um, I know you had this massive store, and then there were some hiccups, and then now you don't have your store anymore.
Yep, that's accurate.
So what happened?
So, I was running an enterprise store on eBay, all dropshipping items, and with
Okay.
almost no product research at all. It was more of a way to force myself to learn because I knew that, like, essentially I used to have problems with being more diligent and doing things every day. So by posting huge amounts of items, I would do it like late at night or when I was in like the right mood to work on my life. I would force myself to then have to process and deal with the complications that would arise from doing that, right? And
Yeah.
essentially, I viewed the way that I drop shipped as a kind of like a publicity stunt in a sense because it
Okay.
allowed me to get attention on YouTube, which I knew would be useful, and it also gave me a lot of data about like how dropshipping works, and connected me with a lot of individuals. And there was through a series of events, the account was scaled too much. Like it's really not advisable to have 100,000 items or more than, like, honestly even more than 10,000. Like you just are so much more likely to encounter the one or two problem items that you need to encounter to lose your account. And most of the time with eBay, you have to get in trouble for something 4 times. And so in my account, with those 100,000 items, there were 3 items that led to the account being banned, just for some
Okay.
perspective. So the chance of it happening to most people is much less likely.
Okay. So, the thing that I wanted to find out from you was when you did your store, what kind of programs did you use?
I used a lot of different programs to manage the store. Essentially, most of it I used Hydra Lister because at the time I was able to post huge amounts of items with Hydra Lister. Nowadays, you can't just post tens of thousands of items without paying more to have that many listings with most dropshipping software. But back then, it didn't work that way. And if you just had a Hydra Lister account, you could post as many items as you were willing to try to post, right? So one of the things that did there were a lot of things that did the store in because I got into a yearly commitment with this enterprise store, right? And Hydra Lister changed the way they worked so that you could only post 4,000 items a month with them. So this put me in a situation where the thing that I was relying on most, I could only use for 4% of my store posting, right? So that was pretty bad. But nowadays, like towards the end of the account's life, I had used a lot of different tools. Essentially, what I would do is I would use one account or I would use the same account but have different tools working with it. So with AutoDS, I had one strategy for certain kinds of items. With DSM Tool, I had another strategy. And so those are the two tools that I migrated to towards the end of my dropshipping lifecycle: DSM Tool and AutoDS. AutoDS is the one that I'm most connected with now, and I I I look at the creators of tools and I communicate with the creators. And if the creators are willing to show their face and share, I value the tool, if that makes sense. And so I have a connection with AutoDS and DSM Tool for these reasons because the creators have kept in touch with me and have been fairly responsive to their audiences about upgrading the tools. So those are the tools that I have the most experience with.
Well, I tried to start AutoDS and I tried to stay open minded for it, but Leor deleted me from the chat for AutoDS. And I'm 51. I'm not the young spring chickens that can pick up all the programs and stuff. So I needed to ask questions on how to do the program,
Mm-hmm.
how to incorporate it, and things like that. So I was asking questions, and the problem that I had was I used AutoDS, and more than 100 of the items that I had listed with them were out of stock.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, so how can you sell me some listings when they're all out of stock?
You mean you purchased the AutoDS Finder items?
Right.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah,
So
that's interesting.
I'm still open to using AutoDS. However, I think that it would have to have a conversation with Lior and go from there. And nothing against him except for that's
well,
not
yeah,
good
if you should
That's not
have
good business when
you
you
should have
delete
in
somebody.
stock listings. Yeah, yeah.
Right.
And so for some reference, like one of the reasons I was using AutoDS at the end was, so essentially what I was doing with AutoDS was posting really, really expensive items. The average item price that I had like a list of like a couple thousand items, and they were each like between $800 and $1,400 cost. So then multiplied by 1.3 or 4 or whatever I was using.
Okay.
And so the reason I used AutoDS for that specific stretch of items was because it was the most like thorough in eliminating items. Whereas like, because from my perspective, you can always find more items. So even if you're using a tool that like fails to post 70% of the items, as long as the 30% that get through are solid and reliable, then for me that's what matters and what counts. So like it's just important to understand that if you expect tools to have a really high rate of like successful listings, that inherently means that the tool is either not filtering problematic items out for you, it isn't getting rid of like Vero problems and that kind of thing as efficiently, and also it's not properly being able to identify out of stock listings. Like in your situation, you absolutely should get like, it shouldn't have been all of them. It definitely should have been like maybe like 30% of them are out of stock, something like that.
Yeah.
But it is important to understand that with all tools, you don't actually want all of the listings to go through. You want there to be some kind of filtering rate. For example, like in my case, 2 of the 4 necessary violations necessary to lose my account came from one particular company. And if I had more information about that company, then those violations wouldn't have happened, and I might still be selling on eBay. It really is like, it seems like a lot of dropshippers get frustrated about that. They're like, I made this list. I took the time to make a list of 200 items, and I want like all of those items to be posted. But you have to be able to take a step back and look at the kind of, you can always just make another list, make another list, make another list, make another list, make another list. There's essentially infinite items for sale online. There's more than you could ever run out of. So it makes sense to have a strong, intense filtering process because you can afford to.
So do you think you would consider, which I know several dropshippers now have stealth accounts. A stealth account?
Yeah, so stealth is something that's always available on eBay. It's always been available. Essentially, eBay is like a big machine, and employees and sellers and buyers interact with that machine. But a lot of people, myself included, think of eBay as a company that you can like communicate with, and eBay knows like uniformly what its policies are on things, and that's not how eBay works. So essentially, if you do ever get banned, it is quite simple once you understand all the variables to make accounts legally that are even in your identity but aren't linked to the same information, so you could keep selling that way. I personally, I have a lot of interest in growing an eBay account just to learn about how they track it and that kind of thing, because there's a whole community of people they feel like they've been like unfairly affected by eBay. And that's just because the way that eBay communicates, like it can be quite frustrating at times. It's quite common to talk to eBay and try and talk to them preventatively and have a conversation, and a rep tells you one thing, and then something that completely contradicts that happens to you. And that inherently creates a lot of the frustration that people feel towards eBay. It's a great opportunity, but it also is important to understand that if you want to really defend yourself and protect the longevity of your business, it is in your best interest to learn about stealth accounts and have like a revolving series of accounts, essentially. That's the only like foolproof way that even if something were to go wrong, you could do that.
Right.
And so anybody can grow stealth accounts. It's really just you have to learn about all the different variables that it's called your digital footprint. Things like your IP address, the screen resolution of your monitor, like the email address, billing address, all this. There's tons of stuff that goes into it.
Right.
But if you do that, then essentially you just work with accounts, and what you do is you make an account. It usually has a separate PayPal account, so you need another bank account for that. And then you like have to grow the accounts for a while. So you can't start selling on it straight away. You have to show eBay that you're like a buyer. So browse for stuff every couple days. Don't do anything selling related, and maybe do that for a couple months. And the more patient you are, then the less likely you are to get flagged. And then if you get flagged, you'd have to restart the whole process. But that's just a quick summary of what stealth on eBay looks like.
Well, I know that several people are mentioning that on the Dropship Titans with Paul's course, they are saying that they're getting flagged for as being dropshippers, but yet on eBay's own account, they're showing dropshippers and all the explanation about what it is, and appears like they permit it.
Yeah, so it's important to understand there that there's a distinction between retail arbitrage dropshippers and traditional dropshipping in eBay's eyes. So there's a form of dropshipping that eBay will always be okay with in the long run. They might temporarily restrict you, but then they realize you're doing it like properly the way that they want, and you'll be able to get your account back and stuff. And that's when you communicate with existing known dropship providers and you develop an agreement with them. This is what was traditionally done before shipping services were so commonplace, right? And then that way you have an agreement, and you're like, hey, every time I get one of these orders, you're going to ship this item to my customer. I'm going to pay you this much of the money that I get, yada, yada, yada. That is so true that eBay actually has a list of suppliers that you can contact that is on eBay's website to dropship this way. And I actually don't know that many people who do it that way, which is sad because I should. Retail arbitrage is when you are using services like Amazon or Walmart to dropship, and you don't have that pre-established relationship with a specific supplier. And that's something that eBay has a problem with. And so you will find that a lot of eBay reps don't understand dropshipping fully. So they just know that there's a bad connotation about it, but they don't understand the kind of differences between that. And what the common arguments that you'll hear from representatives are things like, okay, customers call and then they're like, oh, this came in an Amazon box, and they're angry and that kind of thing. And it inherently shows that eBay itself is remarkably ignorant about how dropshipping actually happens on its platform and what it looks like. And it's really unfortunate because if eBay regulated things better, they could profit off of it and make sure that the buyers have a good experience. But instead, they don't really make any attempts to understand it. And a lot of that has to do with the way the dropshipping community is. A lot of it's under the table, and people don't talk about stuff. And it has a sketchiness to it. So that gets in the way of things.
Well, the way that I've been doing it, I started in April doing the real retail arbitrage, where you actually go out and find the items, you scan them, and then you purchase them and then bring it back and you list them and then sell them from there. Yeah. So I can tell you I have probably about $4,000 worth of stuff in one of my rooms. That's cost. And I've worked with eBay on increasing the sales, increasing the limits, increasing them up to, I'm now at 100,000. Now I probably only have about 30,000 listed, but they have increased it up to 100,000 because of fourth quarter. They said, what would you like to see? And I said, hell, let's shoot for 100,000.
Yeah.
So, and they said, you're approved for 76, but we see there's no issues with your accounts. You have zero complaints, so we'll put you at 100,000. So I try and ship stuff out day of. However, I'm a flight attendant, so I'm flying all over the place. So some days I'm gone for 2 days, some days 3 days. So I'll come home, and that evening, like last night, I was here I had 12 items I had to put together to ship out this morning, and I was rushing to get to the post office before I got back for the video. So, but yeah, so that I still do a lot of that. The stuff that I have listed that's actually drop shipping is starting to pick up, but since my hiccup with AutoDS, I'm doing it just going to websites and looking for stuff and listing it that way. So I need to get into a program that will do a lot of that, simplify a lot of that stuff. I may be at the point now where I need a VA. So
I think if you're interested in dropshipping, you're at the point where you need a VA. Virtual assistants is honestly the single most lucrative. Like, say that if you were looking at like long-term financial stability and income potential,
yes,
an individual who focuses on developing a relationship with a virtual assistant for a month or two and then learns about dropshipping is way more likely to succeed and have long-term like income and stability versus an individual who gets into dropshipping and then waits to get virtual assistants, because dropshipping isn't as valuable as a skill set as virtual assistants.
okay.
Even if you have a VA that you just pay like $50 or $100 a month for 30 minutes of their time a day, that is something that everybody should do. It's hard to explain just how motivated some of these individuals can be and how much easier they can make your life. As long as you communicate with them properly and you properly incentivize your virtual assistants, you can get crazy good results out of them. In a lot of situations, like, you'll want to pay them extra for certain tasks and they'll refuse it because they're like happy to have the work. Like, to give you some perspective, and to don't think that because somebody earns like $3 or $4 an hour that means that they don't appreciate that work. Virtual assistants is huge, and the earlier you can get into it and really get a hold of it, the better, because it's the backbone of a successful dropshipping business and a bunch of other successful businesses. Like, it's really valuable.
Now, coming out of fourth quarter, because we're now at the point where things have slowed down, should I wait a few months, do you think, before I get the VA?
No, you should just get the experience as soon as possible.
Okay.
Anything else is just like, a lot of people will say that you should really know what you're doing before you get a VA. Like, it's true that you shouldn't just like hire a VA and expect that they're going to fix your problems. What I'm saying is, you need a VA where you're communicating with that VA. You are showing them specific tasks that you want them to perform.
Okay.
And you can even go so far as to have the beginning task be completely irrelevant and not matter. All that you're really doing is testing their ability to communicate with you and to follow instructions. Because if they communicate with you and they follow your instructions, that's gold. That's literally all that you need. You can teach them how to do anything at that point.
Okay. So a couple of the questions I have. I have Windows laptop. I wanted to find out, do you use Windows or Mac?
I use Windows.
Okay. Because I see videos on YouTube that everyone's using Mac, and I do not have anything Mac except for an iPhone, which is not really Mac, it's Apple. Mm-hmm. So the thing is converting from Windows to Mac is like, okay.
Yeah, everything's in a different place.
It looks different, yes. So when I see the videos, and shameless plug, Paul's course is amazing. But there are times when I'm like, okay, let me back up for a second. So, but he's the one that I followed the most and gotten to where I'm at now. But I started doing the retail arbitrage in April, and then I found Paul's course in August. So then I've grown a lot since August.
Paul's a very efficient person. He's definitely, if you want to like really earn more money from dropshipping, he's definitely a very important individual to follow.
Well, and I appreciate all of his knowledge. He's definitely going towards AutoDS now. And with my situation with AutoDS, I'm not going that direction right now. So I'm going to have to find another product sourcer.
Well, you can also just like use AutoDS, but just not use the auto generated listings that they provide. So you just use it to post items that you do research to find.
Okay.
Just for reference, like generally like items that a lister provides to you should be used to establish proof of concept. But if you really want to be profitable, then you have to get good at identifying profitable items. That is what like a really experienced dropshipper could start a new account and be able to get results out of it quickly, even though it's new and it has no feedback and these things that people say stop them, right?
Right.
A lot of it comes down to that ability to research and have some kind of system to identify items that are more likely to sell in the first place instead of just posting random stuff.
Okay. So how long ago did you start your drop shipping?
Wow, at this point, let's see. I had a salary job. I got sick. I couldn't do my job anymore. I had to quit. And at the time, I thought I was going to be sick for a long time, like the rest of my life. So I was looking into ways to earn money from home. So I started selling on eBay. And I sold on eBay physically at first. There was this guy I met who did like storage wars kind of stuff. So we'd buy storage lots on auction. And he would just drop stuff off and I'd sell it and then give him half of the money from it. It was a really great relationship because I just got free inventory, right?
Yeah.
And so I sold a lot of stuff that way, and also magic cards. There's a lot of money in magic cards. And then I also sold Nintendo products. Those are the main things that I sold.
Okay.
And then I found out about drop shipping, and I essentially put all that aside because I was like, I don't have to deal with like returning the item because my supplier does that. I don't have to clean the item. I don't have to like make sure to test it for all its possible like research to see what could go wrong, to see if it is wrong. Like it was just like, why do this when I could do something that takes 5% of the time? Like, so I switched to drop shipping, and that was from David Vu's course.
Yeah.
And then I drop shipped for like probably 2.5 years, I think, in total. Maybe 3. I've kind of lost track of time, to be honest.
Okay.
Essentially, my life changed when I started making YouTube videos, and a lot of them are about dropshipping. But also having the course has provided me with like financial stability that I never had before.
Okay.
But yeah, that's pretty much it.
So along with this course, you also offer mentorship?
I do these kind of videos. So essentially, like, if you're willing to let me publish the video on my YouTube channel, then I'll just talk. You can book as many of them as you want, and that is my payment. My course isn't like Paul's course is very specific. It's designed like Paul has the mentality that he's there to like identify the problems, fix them for you, and then present a solution, which is really important and very thorough. But it's also very life consuming. And for me as an individual, that's not really the kind of lifestyle that I want to live. I like having a more flexible lifestyle where I'm able to spend a lot of time with the people I live with and have very close, like, familial bonds. And so for me, it's more about, like, my course is an overview of dropshipping as an industry. So it's meant to be taken as like a companion course along with a more structured course like Paul's course, for example. And it's just going to give you some more insight onto the different ways that people earn money dropshipping and how the scene's different for international people versus domestic people. Some of the things that people do to cut margins, some of the tricks people use, and like ways to like the theme of it is you should expose yourself to as much information as possible, because most dropshippers that I interact with, they just kind of rely on one person or one software, and that's really narrow-minded, especially nowadays given how many YouTube channels are dispensing dropshipping information, how many courses. Like it really, if you want to succeed as a dropshipper, you need to be using virtual assistants and you need to be exposing yourself to as many different perspectives as possible related to dropshipping.
Yeah. I have a YouTube channel as well. I haven't developed it much, but I'm also probably taking it a little bit of a different course. Off topic, you've seen this video, this little kid that does all the toy reviews.
Oh yeah, those are some of the most popular channels on YouTube.
He's making like 20 million. Well, my niece is Abby, and since I travel, I've thought of taking her on trips and doing Miss Abby's adventures. So see
That's
if we can do
cool.
something like that. You're more than welcome to use this video anytime, whatever. That's fine. Um, the last question I had for you was, what is your goal after the course? Just to continue doing what you're doing?
Yeah, so I'm right now. I focus a lot. I think about root cause, and for me as an individual, there's a lot of most of my adult life has been spent without a healthy home environment, and this is really, for a long time, it was a big motivator for me. But you can't live your life constantly burning out and like feeling like you have to change everything and just throwing
Right.
yourself like that. It was necessary for me to be in that state in order to change the quality of my life. But now I have enough income that I could have a good life for a couple of years in Nicaragua around people that I love. And if I focus on the root cause of me as a person and I make sure that my environment contains everything necessary for me to be at my best, then I know that whatever it is I then do next, I will do better. Right. And for me, it doesn't really make sense to try and do new projects when you haven't made the kind of core of what makes you who you are as efficient as possible. So that's what I'm focused on right now. It also bothers me a little bit that most of my income comes from distributing dropshipping information, given that I don't dropship anymore. So what I'm trying to do is make a lot more Udemy courses. I essentially want to have like 10 different courses by the end of 2019. And the way that I make these is I just have an interest and I pursue that interest, make YouTube videos about it, and then I learn about it, and then I make what I learn about more accessible, like make it a bit more efficient, make it more available, and then
Okay.
put it into a course and then move on to something else.
Yeah.
And I want to get myself to a point where maybe like half of the money I earn is from dropshipping, and the rest of it comes from teaching people on Udemy. Udemy is definitely my favorite preferred platform at the moment.
Okay. Less risk.
Yeah, way less. My
Yeah.
life is so much simpler right now.
That's great. So as someone who has done mostly retail arbitrage, just getting into drop shipping, um, a realistic goal that you would set, say 6 months from now.
Honestly, I know I've said this in the video already, but it would be something related to virtual assistants. Virtual
Okay.
assistants is the catalyst of everything else you do with dropshipping.
Okay.
It for so many different reasons. Like it doesn't just allow you to delegate tasks; it also allows you to take a less emotional and more logical look at your business. So I guess I don't really like goals. They're quite arbitrary, and often people just make up a number. And if you get too addicted to that, I've met individuals who appear as quite successful, but are just chasing a bigger number over and over again, and they feel
Right.
depressed and they lack meaning in their lives. You have to be really careful with goal setting. But if you could focus on having a relationship with a virtual assistant. Like if you have a VA by that point, and even if you're only paying them for like an hour every other day, that is a huge turning point because once that is happening, imagine what it's like a year later. After you've been using that VA for a year, you have this muscle that you don't even know exists right now, but you could send a text message out and a task gets accomplished.
Okay.
Like if you're at work or you're somewhere else and you have an idea, normally you'd forget about it, or you might like by the time you get home you don't have the energy to work on it, just boom, WhatsApp message, done. Like it next levels things.
Okay. Well, and the thing is I really enjoy what I do. I've loved being a flight attendant. I've been a flight attendant with this company now for 6 years. So the thing for me is I don't want to stop doing that. I just want to build something that's on the side that I can grow, and I don't have any goals on it. I just want it to be, first off, self-sufficient, where I can, of course, spend 4 or 5 hours a week that when I pay attention to it to make sure that it's going okay. But yet at the same time, allow that to sit while I'm doing my regular job and not have to worry about, oh, if I don't do this, then this is going to die. So
yeah, virtual assistance is going to be necessary to accomplish that.
yeah. And I've been seriously thinking about that for the last month, and I've done Paul's VA course. And the thing is just taking that step.
Yeah. And again, it's something that people overcomplicate. It's super. If you have ordered something online, you've done the level of complexity necessary to work with a virtual assistant. It's just intimidating because it's another person and you're paying them for a task, and that's often new to people. But it really isn't. It's something that anybody could just start doing. There's not really a point you need to get to before you start having a virtual assistant. Just make sure that you're not expecting a virtual assistant to just fix everything. You don't want to pay them to figure out what they're supposed to do unless you really know what you're doing.
Okay. Well, and I know that with any relationship that you have, you're going to have hiccups. You're going to have issues where unexpected things come up. But at the same time, if you have that open communication, you can have them say, listen, if you have an issue with it, then contact me. I'm totally open to all that stuff. So just say, contact me. We'll work through it. So I've managed Halloween stores for 20 years. So retail is easy to do. The biggest part of it is communication. So once you do the communication thing, it's great.
If you understand that, that's awesome.
Yeah. Okay. I don't think I have any other questions. I really appreciate the call, though, so that we can get this done.
Yeah, anytime.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
anyone, yourself or anyone listening to this, if you want to schedule a call with me, there's literally a window every day that anybody could schedule a call with me. And as long as you're comfortable with it being posted to YouTube, then you literally pick what we talk about. It could be me talking. It could be you talking the whole time. It's whatever you guys want.
Great. Thanks for your time.
No worries, man. That was a pleasure.
All right. Have a good day.
You too. Ciao.
Okay.